So in recent years, the MCU has slowly but surely started being referred to as the MCU because, let's be honest here, the elephant in the room, they're starting to push a lot of female superheroes. We have She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel, Wanda, just to name a few off the top of my head within the last year or two that have gotten a huge spotlight. And this has been polarizing because a lot of people feel that the MCU is kind of shoehorning, again, the MCU and making this narrative that men are bad and women are good and girl power. And I got to tell you guys, on paper, again, I always say this, it's all about execution. On paper, it might have good intent. It might be like, yes, let's get strong, independent women out there. But then the execution, just like with She-Hulk or other shows like that, it just fails and it really insults the core audience. Now, comics, MCU, all that is for everybody, but when you insult a huge demographic of your audience, which is male demographic that grew up reading these comics way back in the day, it's not good. And often at times it just feels like it's that wokeness and stuff that's like pushing the feminism into it in a way that just comes across as really passive aggressive and on the defense, like for no absolute reason at all. Like the writers of She-Hulk saying they purposely made the show the way it was to trigger people. Anyways, an actress who had a big show back in the day named Buffy the Vampire Slayer made a statement recently, and Buffy was fucking huge. Not just the original movie, but the series that Sarah Michelle Gellar had, where it was just humongous. Like, that was like one of the biggest shows in the 90s, 2000s, and it was a female-led series, all right? She's giving her take on the Marvel film. She says that they face heavy criticism because audiences only want male superheroes. It's a very backwards way of thinking. And the irony is almost here. Again, it almost feels like Sarah forgot that she was a female lead on one of the most successful shows of all time. And I'm going to give my sense on that. Why I think she's kind of pandering a little bit. This is almost like she's virtue signaling for Marvel and Marvel's stumbles. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm one of the biggest Marvel fans out there. I still watch the series, even the ones I don't like, but even I could sit down and admit that a lot of the writing in the MCU, a lot of the pandering, a lot of the, I guess, focus is a little bit cringe in the execution of it. So let's take a look at this article. This says, in the latest instance of a celebrity blaming fans for the failings of a multi-million-dollar entertainment franchise, rather than giving even the slightest consideration to the fact that the studios themselves may be responsible for their own problems, actress Sarah Michelle Gellar has claimed that the heavy criticism leveled at female-led Marvel projects stems not from issues with their quality, but rather audiences' own inability to accept non-male superheroes. That is a pretty big attack. Again, Sarah, you were in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which did not have the greatest writing of all time. But your show was about fun. Your show had great stories. Your show had great characters. Your show had a lot of episodes that did very well. To this day, I never hear anybody say anything bad about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, never. I know so many audience members, male and female, to this day are like, oh man, I grew up watching that show. I mean, you even had spinoffs. You had Angel and a few other shows. And when you compare it to today, like, let's be honest. Again, She-Hulk writers purposely made the series bad, purposely did it to trigger and to bait and switch people. Also, recently, you've seen other people claim, like the Velma writers purposely made the show bad just because they knew people would hate it. And they want to enrage people. Like, why waste the time and resources to make something bad purposely when you could make something to entertain people that doesn't have politics in it, that doesn't have your woke agenda narratives or your identity politics in it? Why not make something that stands on its own merit? is my argument right here. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer stood on its own merit. So it's almost like she forgot where she came from, almost to the point where I think she's just pandering to woke Hollywood, like completely 110%. And again, woke Hollywood doesn't want to admit that their quality of writing is what people do not want. Look at how the MCU has been doing since post Endgame. You know, you could say the pandemic kind of ruined movie tickets and stuff, but no. Look at Disney Plus. Look at how the response of some of the stuff is. You know, so this says that the Buffy the Vampire Slayer star offered her opinion on the topic of gendered superhero criticism during a recent interview given to UK news outlet The Guardian, given in promotion of her new supernatural YA drama series Wolf Pack. At one point, reflecting on her, man, the scrolling of this website sucks because of all these ads. Hashtag this site sucks. Reflecting on her time as the titular Slayer, Gellar opined that scheduling conflicts with her role as a series lead led her to turn down a number of potential roles in films that would go on to great success, such as Fight Club or Gangs of New York. She was both proud to have made a great television show. So I guess the series was so good. Look at that. She had scheduling conflicts. She was turning down roles at the time. She was getting a lot of opportunities and stuff. But now she's saying the audience has basically changed. And she says every time a Marvel movie tries to do a female cast, it just gets torn apart. Unfortunately, audience weren't as accepting. There's still this mentality of the male superhero, this very backwards way of thinking. And I completely disagree on this, man. I think that a lot of the issues stem from, again, this weird like neo-feminist, like men suck, men are terrible type of vibe that is just off-putting. Let's be completely honest here, guys. I know you want female representation and all this, and that's good. There are some strong women out there. There's strong women characters out there that could be role models, inspiration for young children, male and female. Why do female heroes have to only be role models for female children? They could be role models for everybody, grown adults, right? Continuing this article, this says, it should be noted that in reality, as mentioned above, the issues fans took with Marvel's female-led endeavors had nothing to do with the gender of its leads, but rather the quality of their stories and cinematography. For example, the typically raised smoking gun example of fans' supposedly anti-female fervor, Captain Marvel is generally accepted by its critics to be a fine, if not standard, superhero origin tale. Instead, fans were off-put by the fact that not only was Marvel trying to force audiences to treat Carol Danvers with the same reverence as such comic book icons as Captain America or Spider-Man, but that its lead actress responded to its critics of the cynical attempt at artificial relevance by pompously writing them off as bigots. And that's the problem. Is even the lead actress. Like, I know you watch people like Quartering and them that just to this day still kind of go after Brie herself, and you know, when the actors and the people that make the shows and stuff quickly put like any kind of criticism simply as, oh, you're racist, you're a bigot, you're this, you're that, that's why you don't like the show. That's where the problem stems from. You start attacking your audience, guys, you're going to lose. You know, you're going to lose. Nothing good ever comes out of that. And it seems like, you know, the higher-ups at the MCU have started to do that. Then this continues on to talk about Black Widow, a film which most audience have been clamoring for ever since her proper superhero debut in the first Avengers film. And then it says, it was only soured when the film finally came to fruition and was found to be filled with backstory-ruining quips. Why does Yelena treat the forced hysterectomies forced upon Red Room recruits with such levity when her sister could barely bring herself to talk about it with Bruce in Age of Ultron? And an embarrassingly poor CGI. Audiences rejected the film not because it was focused on women, but because after years of anticipation, what they got was perhaps the laziest and most Marvel Studios movie of the entire franchise. And I admit it was a little bit of a letdown, but it did come out several years too fucking late. This continues about Multiverse of Madness. So it said it was a same strain of bait and switch inspired frustration. Also serves to explain why audiences who for so long had hoped to see the former Sorcerer Supreme used to his full visual and horror potential as a magic-based character had no love for Multiverse of Madness. After leaving fans abuzz with what many have argued are both the best MCU climaxes and post-credit teases in the Good Doctor's first solo outing, Marvel decided to do a full 180 and use its sequel to offer some sort of vindication to Wanda's post-WandaVision heel turn. So, it's almost like all the men in the MCU, this goes on to talk about Thor, you know, like Thor was put to the side, Hulk was put to the side, even Black Widow was put to the side in her own movie. You know, Iron Man's being put aside for Ironheart, and it's like they want it's clearly obvious they want to force these guys are bad. The men are bad, women good, and it's super fucking cringe, whether you want to admit it or not. And that's why the MCU is starting to fail, Sarah Michelle Gellar. I mean, as somebody that was a huge part of the 90s and 2000s and a strong female lead, it's really like she forgot where she came from. She has no, like, I don't know. I think she's pandering 110%. Or maybe she's prepping for her new show, Wolfpack, to fail because it's going to be cringe writing too. Because apparently Hollywood would rather write about identity politics than write about good stories and fun and action for people to enjoy. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.